Let's talk about Bangladesh first. Bangladesh is set for a democratic reset. Voters will head to the ballot box on Thursday morning. This is, remember, the first electoral exercise after the ouster of the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. From July 2024 till the 12th of February 2026, Bangladesh has seen Hasina's departure, Khalida Zia's demise and widespread violence. Addressing concerns over law and order situation, Bangladesh's interim government has ramped up security arrangements. The deployment includes personnel from the country's armed forces, the police and the Rapid Action Battalion. Collectively, around 1 million security personnel will be on duty to ensure security on multiple levels of the voting process. There are a total of 260,000 polling booths and 43,000 polling stations across 300 constituencies. A total number of eligible voters in Bangladesh stands at over 127.5 million. These elections are unlike any other in Bangladesh's political history, where people are being asked to cast two votes, one for the parliamentary representatives and the other for the constitutional referendum. Campaigning for the elections ended 48 hours before the vote. After colourful posters were prohibited, candidates have now hung black and white posters across various cities. There are two major political forces vying for victory in these elections. First is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, led by former Prime Minister Khalida Zia's son. And the second one is the coalition of Islamist parties led by Jamaat-e-Islami. The majority of the polls are giving advantage to Tariq Rahman. But some suggest that Jamaat is giving a tough fight to the BNP. Sheikh Hasina's Awami League is barred from contesting these elections, and this has sparked a debate on political fair play. Apart from that, there are major concerns about the participation of women and the minorities in these elections, especially after increased cases of violence against minorities and Jamaat chief's inflammatory remark against working women. 394 international observers and 197 foreign journalists have landed in Dhaka. These include representatives from European Union and 21 other countries. The UN has called on authorities to ensure inclusive, safe and meaningful participation of women in these elections. Meanwhile, Bangladesh's chief advisor Mohammad Yunus has said that he will step down as soon as the new government takes charge. Unofficial results will start emerging during the early hours of Friday, but the wait could last longer this time, as votes for the referendum and the elections will be counted simultaneously. And let's also listen from the voters on what they think on this election and the entire referendum.
The election has been reduced to a game between only the center-right and the right-wing and the extreme right factions. So there is no options for me to vote for.
I pray and hope that peace will prevail here, that people of all faiths will coexist forever.
We will vote only if it remains peaceful. We just need one thing from the administration: to provide security, as we feel afraid during the elections.
I want our people to choose a government that won't fear criticism, those who won't consider dissenting voices as enemies, but rather will respect them.
And let me go across to our assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibbal, who is in Bangladesh covering these elections. Siddhant, extremely important elections for Bangladesh. This is historic in many ways, considering the fact that this is the first time that it's happening after the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government and the rise of Jamaat-e-Islami, of course, concerns of that party rising as well. But get us, the ground sentiment at the moment. Of course, preparations and security arrangements are in place, but what are the people saying there?
Well, since we have landed on the ground, one thing I've noted is heightened security presence all throughout Dhaka city. Security is present in full force, but also you won't see any vehicles, just rickshaws you will see. And largely for the authorities here, the big focus is to make sure that the election goes off peacefully. Now in pole position are two main contenders. It is Rahman versus Rahman, Shafiqur Rahman of Jamaat versus Tariq Rahman of the BNP, essentially replacing the Begum versus Begum fight of the erstwhile Bangladeshi politics. But on the ground, the many people I have been able to speak, they basically see this as a historic election, given the fact that they see this election as a break from past. And also there's a referendum as well that perhaps gives a new political structure to the country, limiting the Prime Minister's term as well. But tomorrow we'll get to know essentially how things pan out. So far, in last 15 days, one thing is for sure that there hasn't been any major incident of violence, and that is a sigh of relief. And also several foreign observers are present on the ground, including many from European Union. So authorities are making sure that this election goes off peacefully and there's a peaceful transfer of power.
That's right, Siddhant, and we at WION, of course, you will be getting us ground reports, and here we'll be getting our viewers all the latest that's happening there. But thanks very much, Siddhant, for joining us and getting us more from what has been happening in Bangladesh right as it goes into voting. Let me also go across to Mr. Chris Blackburn, who is a security analyst with 20 years of work experience in the Indian subcontinent. He's joining us live from London. Let's get a perspective on what he thinks about these elections. Chris, good evening. Welcome to WION. Where do you see this heading? This is a very significant election for Bangladesh, happening right after Sheikh Hasina's ouster. You don't have the battle of Begums happening, considering that Awami League has been banned, Sheikh Hasina is out, Khalida Zia is no more. So clearly there are new dynamics now that are in play in Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a massive historic election, and what we're seeing is basically a generational shift. Like, Sheikh Hasina is obviously playing a lesser role, even though she's in exile. We've had the death of Khalida Zia and the rise of Tariq Rahman, and then we've seen this resurgence of sort of Islamist forces in Bangladesh. I think the interim government, it's been plagued by chaos, mob violence. So hopefully we don't see a rerun of that either during the election or after. But it's amazing watching these things happen. And I think a lot of security analysts are sort of hedging their bets, but there is a lot of fear out there. And I think when we saw your program, when you were talking to sort of normal Bangladeshi voters, there is a lot of fear and trepidation there. And I think what we've seen on the campaign trail, it's been quite moderate. There's actually been quite a lot of positive things said by both party leaders, from Tariq Rahman and obviously the Jamaat leader, that they want to have peaceful, friendly ties with India. So that rhetoric on the sort of anti-India side's been quite low, but we've also seen some major sort of we've seen some large debates about women and their role in politics, and there is a massive shift here. It's gone from the battling Begums to women have vanished. They've vanished from the playing field.
You know, it's interesting, Chris, that you bring in the women, because Jamaat chief in his previous remarks has equated working women to prostitutes. Then he redacted that statement saying that, look, my account was hacked and I didn't make that statement. In fact, the Jamaat-e-Islami party then went on to print in its manifesto that they will have women participating in their party. But how much do you think that would work out, both with the BNP and Jamaat? BNP has about just 7 or 8 women that they have pitched for these elections. Jamaat has none. And of course, other parties have very minimal numbers as well.
Yeah, well, I think it all goes back to when the National Citizens Party, the NCP, they were basically run by women. And they've decided that they wanted to go down a path of an election, sort of an alliance with Jamaat. And the women were saying that, no, we're being sidelined. And I think the comments by the Jamaat-e-Islami leader that the women were prostitutes with the alleged hack, he went and reinforced that when he actually did an interview with Al Jazeera, where he said, listen, women in leadership positions isn't part of Bangladesh's culture. Well, this is unbelievably strange, because the battling Begums have dominated Bangladeshi politics for decades. 2 women leaders at the top of the 2 most popular parties. So to say that that's not part of Bangladesh's culture is a slap in the face to all the women in Bangladesh.
You know, one of the big concerns, Chris, is also about minorities, and now reports emerging ahead of the elections, ahead of the voting day, is the fact that both BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami are now, assuring that there will be safety of minorities, yet we have a latest incident of a Hindu man being killed there. So, there are concerns about minorities, despite the fact that this is a rather young election. It's been dominated by Gen Z. It has the aspirations of the youth of Bangladesh, but there are concerns which stem from minority killings as well.
Yeah, and you're right to point that out. And unfortunately, when you look at the history of Bangladesh, whether even under the Awami League, there has been a sort of a reaction against minorities after elections. When the BNP Jamaat government came to power in 2000, there was attacks on Hindus because they said, "Oh, you support the Awami League," and so we've seen this, and unfortunately, it is part and parcel of Bangladesh's politics, and it's horrific to see it. And I think, yes, they can say that they want to go out and protect minorities, but whether or not that happens in practice, it's shocking, and I think we all need to do better to protect minorities.
I'll leave it there. Let's wait and see what happens tomorrow and what the results eventually are. But Chris Blackburn, thank you very much for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.